All right, so let's dig into this. Thank you for that introduction. Again, I'm a little blown away by how excited everybody is in the chat, so I hope to live up to this. I am talking about personal branding today. I have a lot of thoughts about this, but I am also a talker, so I'm going to try to fit it into the 20 minutes and have 5 minutes for Q&A, but please throw questions in the chat as we go, and hopefully we will be able to pull those out at the end. Again, I will try and keep it relatively brief. I have a lot of feels, so bear with me here. So here we go. We are community professionals. We are empathetic, supportive, enthusiastic people who cheerlead others into the end zone. But you know what we also are? We are people pleasers who put others first and put our companies first frequently. My husband calls this a I don't know that I quite agree with that, but it is worth thinking about the fact that a lot of times people who work in the community field tend to put everybody else first. We highlight other people, we talk about other people, and we find it weird to talk about ourselves. But we're missing an opportunity here. We can focus on ourselves and it will elevate both our brand as well as our company at the same time. So we're going to deal with some tactical things, digging in here. All right. So the first thing is you need to shift your focus. I know concentrating your company is super easy. It's easy short term to be like, but I'm elevating something that's amazing. It's easy to talk about somebody else. This is when you have to write your own letters of introduction, for example, and it feels really weird to talk about yourself in third person and be like, she loves to do X, Y, and Z. It's hard. I get it. It's much easier to talk about your company, but you can have a lot of positive impacts talking about yourself. And so I'm going to kind of dig into what that means. It showcases your business expertise. This is important because it reinforces your business expertise across your specific industry, which means that you're increasing your value as a thought leader. You're increasing your value out in the public as well as at your company. And we'll dig into that some more later. And it leads to things like leadership development because people see you, they talk to you. Once you start positioning yourself as an expert, you're going to more sessions, you're learning more things. And it also means that your company tends to potentially invest in you to help you learn more things in that professional development side. And then I've got a piece here that talks about creating multiple career paths and work-life balance. And this is because if you start creating your personal brand, a lot of times side opportunities will show up and those lead to additional revenue streams, which means you get more control over how and when and how much you work. So I think that that's something to really think about. If your long-term plan is you want to be able to have multiple revenue streams and not depend on just your job, and this happened to a lot of people during the pandemic, when you're depending just on one role for your income, that means that not only is that your focus, that limits your opportunities in the future. So think about that as well. And then finally, managing your reputation with current and future companies. There's a stat that says that 70% of employers use social media to screen candidates during the hiring process. And 43% actually use them to check on their current employees. And that's a 2018 thing from Career Builder, but that's just social media. That's not even blogs, books, speaking opportunities, and all the other things that go into your personal brand. So I see some stats in here over the side. Oh, hey, David. Oh gosh, this is really freaking me out. Everybody's saying beautiful things. I appreciate it. It is work. And we'll go into that, Jenny. You're right. It is work, but it has a payoff. I promise. So it's important to really think about these are the things that will pay off for you in the long term if you're thinking about not just your company, but also your personal brand. So let's talk about personal brand. How do you do it? Dolly Parton is one of my favorite people. And her quote is find out who you are and do it on purpose. I love this quote because nobody is more embracing of and in touch with their personal brand than Dolly Parton. Let's be honest. You know exactly what you're getting with Dolly, and she loves herself for it. She is out there doing her thing and enjoying life. So this is something that embrace yourself, right? Because if you were Dolly and you had thought about, well, maybe I won't do the big hair and the bejeweled outfits and be that big presence on stage, would she be who she is right now? Probably not. And so I think it's important to realize that you can be your authentic self and it's okay. It's not just okay, it's amazing and it can be celebrated. So let's dig in. How do you do it, right? It's great to talk about. Let's talk about your voice. That's important. That's what Dolly is talking about too. You need to pick a niche. What do you want to be known for? Sit down and think about it, draw up some pros and cons. It doesn't have to be the thing that you do in your company day to day. It might be a bigger thought leadership thing. It might be the thing you want to pivot into. Pick that niche and then start keeping it consistent. Every single time you talk about things on social media, when you're speaking about things at events, when you're in meetings with other people, those are the areas that you want to double down on learning about and you want to double down on speaking about. So who is someone you think is crushing it? I like to use this because you can look at other people and say, that person's doing that well. She is amazing and I wish that I could be like her. Or he is really, really the expert in this field. How do I get to that? So I'm not saying copy them, but I am saying use it as best practices. Use it as this is something that that person does well, and it would be a best practice to continually post on LinkedIn every day, for example. There are some people who put out little tiny blog posts every single day. There's people who are on Twitter all of the time. Identify what that looks like for you and start doing it consistently. And then identify where your gaps are to get to that level that you want. And it sounds easy, right? Like what do I need to do to level up? But really sit down and map out a path to address those. Do you need better writing skills? That's a big one if you're going to run a blog or you're going to be condensing a lot of information in very small spaces on the Twitter sphere, for example. Do you need public social media presence? Do you have a public social media presence versus your Instagram that's full of pictures of your dog? Do you need training in public speaking? Do you need training in general in that niche that you want to become an expert in? And think about that, because a lot of times your company will have professional development budget, and they can put that toward you becoming certified and trained in those areas. That gives you the wherewithal to begin to become that subject matter expert. And then when's the deadline? I know we don't like deadlines for the most part, but they hold you accountable. Goal setting is key to this. If you say in 3 years, I want to be known for X, how do you get there? Break it down into smaller projects. I want to have, instead of just, I want to be here by this date, think about, I want to be certified in this by this date, or I want to speak on 7 panels by this time frame, or I want to write 6 blog posts in this time frame. Now, a lot of this is online, but bear in mind that's a lot of it is because of the pandemic and because online presence can have a much more exponential effect. And then it can drive toward these more personal things. And then I do want to note, double check your current company's policy. This is important. Some companies do have online and social media policies. They've got specific things you can and can't do at your company, and especially in things like healthcare or finance. So if you're in those industries, those are things you want to dig into. And there's also some pieces around if your company's going through a financial thing like an IPO or a public acquisition, there typically are things that you can or cannot talk about at certain times. So be aware of that so you don't get blindsided by something. Okay. How many of you have Googled yourself recently? I know it's weird. Trust me, it's weird. I do it to myself regularly and I'm always like, what is that? Check on your current reputation. This is incredibly important. Maybe less so for some of us who are older and our entire lives weren't on social media from the time that we were 10 on. But people who are in their early 20s, a lot of stuff lives on forever in the internet. And you need to know what that is so that you can control your narrative and your reputation. Go out there and put your name in. Now, obviously, this is trickier if you have a common name. If you've got an uncommon name, go out there and see what's happening. And you want to see what your first impression is. Just like your first impression when you go into interview, people's first impressions of you are on Google. And I'm going to say this, for the love of God, get a good headshot. I don't mean you have to go pay somebody for like a super professional thing, but what you don't want is a headshot of yourself that's cropped out from 17 people at a wedding. Not what you want, I promise. Spend a little time, even if it's a friend with an iPhone and like an Ivy background or something, spend a little time getting a good headshot, not just for your LinkedIn, although that is the first place that a lot of people will look for you. It's also something that you want to use throughout the Google sphere and everything else. This is important because you would be surprised the number of, say, Fortune 500 CFOs who have one tiny little grainy 15K picture on their LinkedIn. That's it. That's all that exists. And you know where those get used? Forbes articles when they change roles. Don't be that person. Have a good headshot. It doesn't take much. And yes, there was a point in the chat that says take them often. Don't use your 10-year-old one unless you somehow managed to look like yourself from 10 years ago. I do not. I wish I did. But if you figure out how to make that happen, please let me know. And so also, I know I said LinkedIn. It is more than LinkedIn. LinkedIn is what's relevant for, say, my area, and it's relevant for a lot of B2B people, and it's relevant for certain industry professionals, but that is going to depend on your industry. You need to figure out where the relevant profiles and industry networks are that you need to have a presence. If you're in startups, for example, maybe Crunchbase is also somewhere you need to have a presence. I don't necessarily know what those are for healthcare, things like that, but they exist. Where are people going? Where do they look you up? Where do you look up other people when you're looking for speakers, for example, and start building out your presence on those areas? And then one more thing that I want to mention is set up a G Drive with a high-res set of headshots and 2 to 3 links of personal bios. Because as you're building out this fantastic personal brand, that makes it super easy to drag and drop and share those with people and make sure that you're controlling the picture they use, you're controlling the narrative about yourself. Is that all making sense over there? I'm trying to keep up with the chat, but like a lot of is going on. And if you feel weird about the personal bio, this is an area where you're like, I don't want to talk about myself. Have a friend do it for you. You can send them bullet points that you want them to mention. Have a friend or a coworker do it for you, and then you can tweak from there. It's much less scary when somebody else writes pretty things about you, I promise. All right. We are going right along, and I just realized I did not check my time, so I don't actually know if I'm over, so somebody yell for me if I'm like running late. Expanding your network. I cannot overstate this. I know we've got Adam Marks over here in the chat. Adam does an amazing job of building networks on both LinkedIn and Twitter. So a lot of the stuff that I'm saying, he's going to be backing up over here. And we will dig in on your personal bio and what should be in there as well shortly. Stop, Adam. You know you're great. Expanding your network authentically is really important. And what I mean by that is start conversations with people without expecting something in return. And I'm going to say that this is important because I have actually watched somebody who was a startup founder at a startup event blow off an investor because they didn't look like an investor. I don't know what they thought that meant, but they didn't look like an investor. And that particular founder was only interested in having valuable conversations with the right people. I happened to be standing near them when someone else said, oh, that's the investor you need to talk to. And they realized what they had done earlier, and it was awful. So have conversations with people because you want to genuinely learn about them, not because you're thinking this is what somebody can do for me. As an extension of that, know the people in your industry and space that you want to start building relationships with, have context for who they are and what they look like so that doesn't happen to you. And also, I know this is weird, expanding your networks. Are there introverts in my audience over here who are like, I don't want to talk to people. It feels weird, whether it's in person or it's in a chat. I don't like it. I got you. Oh, look at all of the introverts are like, I don't like this. It's terrible. Okay. So here's a suggestion I have from a professional acquaintance of mine who inherited a really big role. And part of that was having to be out in public. And she was super introverted. It sapped her strength, right? Absolutely. Here's what she did. Every time she went to an event, she set a limit for herself, or she set a goal. And she said, before I can talk to one person that I know here, I have to talk to 3 people I don't know. And then I have to talk to another person I know, safe space, relax. And then I have to go back out and talk to 3 more people. So she'd come talk to me in an event. I'd be like, have you talked to your 3 people yet? And she was like, no, I've talked to 2. And I'm like, you have to go back out there and talk to your other person. But it does help when you say, I'm going to talk to 3 people. It's manageable. You know what you're doing. You have a goal. You get to the end and you can take a rest. And it was really helpful for her because she could pace herself when she started getting overwhelmed. She knew what her number was of how many people after a little trial and error that she could do that with. So I totally recommend doing that. Also, recharge right before you go in the event. Take a walk with your dog, go sit on your porch, whatever it is that recharges you, recharge right before. All right, let's see. Ask how you can help. Proactively offer to do stuff. This is incredibly important, right? Because people aren't necessarily going to know you're available. So you need to get out there and volunteer. And volunteering to help with events, setting up for things, identifying panelists, whatever it is, you as a volunteer help start building that network in a behind the scenes way that then you can start leveraging. Adam's saying pretty things over here. I'm going to let him expand on that because that was really smart. Thank you, Adam. And then I want to talk about highlighting and celebrating others, which is an area that several people on here do very well. I've seen you all on Twitter and I've seen you on LinkedIn shouting out other people. This is easy for us as community builders. We see other people a lot and we already are cheerleaders. Start leveraging social media to highlight great work that other people do. One, people remember genuine shout outs. And two, you get visibility to their network for having given them the shout outs. For example, a couple of months ago, I realized that Jay Klaus, who is the host of Creative Elements and community lead at SBI, and Alan Gannett, who's the author of The Creative Curve and the founder of Track Maven, they had similar things that they talked about. And I thought that they were both really valuable. And I was talking to a coworker and I said, did Jay and Alan know each other? Because they talk about a lot of the same things. And she said, I don't know. And I looked them up on Twitter and LinkedIn and they weren't connected. And so I got on Twitter and I said, hey, Jay, hey, Alan. Neither of them know me from anybody. I got on there and I was like, Jay and Alan, hey, I think you guys both talk about the same things. You do really great stuff here. Here's what I love about it. I wish y'all would get together and do a podcast. They saw it on Twitter. They both follow me now. They got together. They did a podcast. And at the beginning of it, they actually gave a shout out to me and my coworker for connecting them. And now they like hang out and have coffee and stuff. It's fantastic. And I got a benefit of not only authentically supporting them and being super excited, but it's also they provided visibility to me to their extended network. Ask for what people need, make that connection genuinely. Check first before you do introductions. Check with the person you're doing the intro to. Make sure that they're cool with it. Make sure it makes sense. Sometimes you'll reach out to somebody and say, hey, I want to intro you to this person. And they'll say, that's not really a good area of expertise for me, but here's somebody else you should. And so I think it's important to always do that ask first. And then by the time you do the introduction, they already have a warm intro and they know what's going on. And then finally, follow up, follow up, follow up. I cannot say it enough. You know what's valuable to people, knowing that you took their advice and giving feedback on what happened because of it. Follow back up with them. Hey, I did this thing that you said, and it was amazing. Thank you so much. And say thank you. You don't have to write a handwritten personal note. Just say thank you. And if you can do that in social media somewhere, even better. All right. Let's talk about subject matter experts or SMEs. And no, I don't know why all of the stock images are white dudes in suits, but it is. So ladies, let's take some more pictures of being the experts and get that upvoted. Jenny asked, by the way, how do you keep track of follow-ups? I'm a big dork. I have a Google spreadsheet, but you can use all sorts of things. Gmail has a really great way where you can bump unreads to the top, for example. And if you want to just mark things unread that you need to follow up on, it's really going to depend on what your way of tracking is. Some people use Google Keep. Some people use Slack as reminders. Some people use Evernote. You need to track it in some way, though, if what you're doing is intentionally building your network. All right. How do you become a subject matter expert? These are some tactical ways that you can build your positioning. Start small and local. If it's physical areas that you need to be building on, local is the way to do it. Obviously, that's a little harder right now. We're in the middle of the pandemic. Things are awkward and weird. Hopefully that'll change soon. But there are still virtual niche industry groups that you could be involved in. Remember when I said you should be volunteering? Go volunteer for those groups. I guarantee they need something. And half the time they might be like, do you want to be a board member? Because they need really good people in those groups. Those groups are not as insurmountable as you think they are to break into. And then being a member of those groups builds your street cred. And then ask. Let people know that one of your goals is to improve your public speaking skills, for example, and that you are happy to join panels and sessions on certain topics. Try and make sure that they're topics around the niche you're trying to build and that you're comfortable speaking on or that you want to get better at. You will actually be surprised how many people take you up on this. I mean, look, We're community professionals. Half the time we're building events, trying to get people to talk. You know, you always need good speakers. You can be that good speaker. You know what's required to be a good speaker. So bring that to the table. I have a friend who said that she needed to be building up her public speaking expertise. So her New Year's resolution was to speak at X number of events. She put out on social media that she was going to say yes to every single thing that people asked her to speak at for the next 6 months. And she was inundated. She had spoken at like one thing before then. And in 6 months, she hit her max and was like, I'm good now. But you know what? It was fantastic because she built her network. She built her brand reputation. She improved her public speaking skills. And now she's a subject matter expert on these things. And everybody was like, we would have loved to have had you sooner. We just didn't know this was an area that you were working on. So make the ask and apply to speak. Apply. You learn stuff. Every time you have to condense your session into a little bullet point or an elevator pitch, every time you have to put your slides together, you learn something new and you take that to the next place. And then ask for people's advice. People love to give advice. You'll get a bigger reach if you do it on social media. Hey, expert in X, I have a question about this. This seems like an area that you would know a lot about. What would you do in this situation? And if they respond, you're getting the benefit not only of their advice, but you're getting the benefit of the extended area. Oh, I love how people are trying to speak at events over here. Put it out there if you're looking for people in specific areas and follow up, you guys. Come on. This is great. We've got a lot of people who are looking for speakers. Okay. Watch others do things well. What are they doing that works? What are they doing that doesn't? Things like this event, when you see panelists who are doing really well and resonate with the audience, when you see moderators who are really good. Moderating is a hard skill, and it is a great skill to start with on panels when you're not answering questions, but it is a very hard skill to do well. So I'm going to forewarn you that it seems easy to be the person not answering questions. It's hard to balance how many people are speaking, how much, making sure it's even, etc. But it is a really good, solid skill to get. And then document what you've done. We talked about this earlier. It's easy for us to dismiss ourselves. Document it. Put it on your LinkedIn. It needs to be there anyway to build your personal brand. Put everything on there that you've been doing professionally. Even if you put together an ebook about something, put it on there. Document your achievements. Have them available and visible so that when people are Googling you, those things come up. Let's see. Oh, yeah, you guys, you're community pros. You understand people. You know what makes people tick. You know what works. You know what works between people. This is your skill set. You probably already have a network that you're not even leveraging right now because you're people. Go out there and start leveraging it. And if you haven't built that network, although I'd be surprised, let's start doing that now. But settle in because it's probably going to take a while. Justin Bieber to the contrary, most of us are not going to become overnight sensations singing a cover on YouTube or TikTok. Okay? I would like that. Nobody wants to hear me sing on TikTok. But the point is, what you're doing right now is building that foundation. You're doing it one step at a time. And it's going to seem like you're doing these things and there's not any visibility. But what's going to happen is it's all going to start coalescing. It requires tenacity. The tenacity of, say, pandas climbing in leaf baskets or the zookeeper getting them out of leaf baskets. But just keep doing it. No, David, you don't want to hear me sing on TikTok. I promise. But just keep doing it, because if you're consistent, this long-term payoff is going to happen. It starts snowballing, because what will happen is you'll get on a panel. Somebody else will see you on that panel and be like, you know what? They were really good. They had great, interesting things to say here. And then somebody else will follow up, and then somebody else will follow up. And every little bit of visibility exponentially starts adding up. All right, let's talk about your company. I promised you that this was going to be good for you and your company. I know. Let's talk about that. Personal branding drives value not just for you, it drives it for your company as well. Subject matter experts drive organizational exposure and reputation. You know why? Subject matter experts tell others who the company really is. They drive trust in the brand. There was a 2020 report that said that most people, over 50%, find information very or extremely credible when it comes from a regular employee rather than a CEO or a board of directors. And in fact, 68% said that a corporate technical expert ranks absolutely the highest and most trustworthy. So what you're doing is creating a way for your company to have a trusted expert speaking to other people about your product or your service. And then customer acquisition and retention. People buy from people, right? They don't buy from companies. Your visibility drives, oh, I'm interested in the company that this person works for because I think that person is amazing. And by extension, this company that they're extremely loyal to must be amazing as well. And then it also drives organic social media reach for your company. That's where the employee advocacy comes in. Anything that you're posting on social media about your company builds up this like organic, authentic feel about what kind of company your company is, what kind of product or service it is that you're providing. And again, goes back to that trust factor. Okay. This is important. Your company will value it because the average person now switches jobs every 4 years. What does this tell you? It tells you that people who feel supported by their company tend to stay. Happy people tend to stay at the company they're at. It is valuable to companies to support you in building your brand. People who feel supported by their companies help improve the hiring process. They improve employee retention. They increase all sorts of statistics for your company. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics actually has a discussion around how people tend to stay with companies that other happy people are at, especially if they're visible in social media.
We've run out of time pretty much.
No.
I really didn't want to interrupt. It's been such a great conversation.
I'm on my last slide.
Was it your last slide? I'm so sorry.
It's fine.
There's been so many good questions and everything. I would love.
It's my fault for running over. Your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. I don't know that Jeff Bezos truly cares about this particular quote anymore, but nonetheless, what do you want them to say about you? Go make it a reality. All right, now I'm done.
Fantastic. Aly, really didn't want to interrupt because you've said so many cool things and people have actually, it resonated with people. I've been watching the, the session. It's been a great presentation. Thank you very much for everything. And I think you've answered one of the most prominent questions there. It was about the first question, which was about how do introverts overcome shyness in personal branding. So I'm very glad that this actually got answered within your presentation. So thank you for having, for sharing your wisdom with us, because this is probably, one of the most important things to manage really your personal brand. So really appreciate this. It's been a fantastic session. Sorry, we didn't have a lot of time for questions, but the things that you conveyed, they were very important. Please do follow Aly if you're happy for people to.
Yep, I just dropped my email in the chat, but you can follow me on Twitter. I'm less functional on LinkedIn just because LinkedIn messages tend to get lost, but reach out, grab me, would love to chat. And thank you for everybody that I know on here. Y'all were really supportive. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you should definitely do a networking table. So David's actually, putting that through. So please use CMX Summit Rise when you're actually sharing, anything from this conference. So Aly, thank you very much. It's been golden, and we hope to, see you again in another chat.
Thank you so much. And I can't join a networking table. I have to go get my kid from daycare. I'm really sorry.
Cool. So thanks very much, and thanks everyone. So just jumping on to the next session that's going to start in the next minute. And thanks, and all the very best to everyone.
Thank you all.